Hey, what is happening, guys? Happy Monday. The markets are down again this morning. I've been kind of purposely trying to kind of tune out of crypto. I'm not really looking to put any money in. I'm not going to sell at these big losses, so I've been kind of trying to just take a step back. And I really can't help myself from browsing Reddit and checking the charts, but for the most part, I've been kind of trying to take a step back. Haven't been keeping as close of an eye on the markets as I normally do. But wanted to make kind of a Monday morning vlog, kind of talking about the crypto space, what's going on, what I'm doing, etc. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing in today's video. I am going to be using the C word. I know nobody likes to throw around the C word, but I do think this is a crash and not a correction. You know, I know a lot of people in the crypto space, they don't like the word crash. Oh, this isn't a crash, this is a correction. And that may be true of 5%, 10%, 15%, even 20%, 30%. But I mean, when the entire crypto market is down 50% or more, when all the shit coins that were kind of pumping weeks ago are down 70%, 80%, 90%, I think it's fair to call it a crash at this point. I think the people who got hit the hardest were people who were kind of riding these shitcoin waves. You know, we're talking about things like Tron and, you know, Verge, among others. Pretty much everything is down horribly. I mean, even if you're in quality projects like Neo or Lisk or, you know, some of the others, even those things are down big. And heck, even the core cryptos, right? The Bitcoin, the Litecoin, and Ethereum are all down, you know, well under 50% of their all-time highs. One site that you guys may want to start using to look at charts, if you don't already use it, is on-chain FX as opposed to like CoinMarketCap. One kind of cool feature they have is there's all these different boxes for different columns you can check on the sidebar, and one of them is all-time highs. So you can check and you can have displayed how many days has it been since a coin had its all-time high. So, you know, Bitcoin was at its all-time high back, sometime in December, I think it was. So you can see, like, okay, it's been 47 days since the all-time high. You can also see the percentage down we are from the all-time high. So if you take a look at that, it's kind of disgusting. Like, everything's down like 50%, 68% off of all-time highs. And then you can also look at how much money things are down off of the all-time high. So it just kind of puts the market into perspective. One thing that's sort of positive in a way, I guess, or maybe negative, is seeing how many days it's been since the all-time high. Like, it really wasn't that long ago that we were sitting at all-time highs. So I mean, I guess that kind of illustrates how fast the market can slip out from under you. But you know, it also illustrates that the market can really turn on a dime, and you know, this whole thing could be over and it could be going up very soon. Although things are looking very bearish. One kind of trap I caught myself falling into beginning of the year was like seeing like Verge and all these other coins go up like 30%, 40% a day. I knew they were garbage coins, but part of me was kind of like, I'm almost stupid if I don't like kind of ride this wave. So I started kind of buying into Trons and Verges and things like that. I think I bought Tron at 2 or 3 cents, rode it up to 25 or 26, and then when I saw it coming back down, I managed to unload that one at like 17 cents. But I got a couple buddies who are sitting on some heavy losses, and you know, some of these losses I don't ever think are going to come back. Ripple, I don't know that Ripple will ever come back. I know Ripple's the coin that a lot of people kind of went into kind of heavily, and I think as far as lessons that we can take away from this, you know, people were starting to get cocky, right? People who had been in, it doesn't matter if you've been in crypto for a long time or a little bit of time, everybody was starting to get cocky, myself included. And even if it's not getting cocky, it's falling into this mindset that crypto can do nothing but go up and up and up and up and up. And I think deep down we all knew that these types of gains weren't really sustainable. I mean, everything can't go up 30% a day indefinitely. At some point things have to pull back, and you know, I think maybe a 30% pullback may have been a quote-unquote healthy correction. What we're going through right now is a little bit troublesome to me, is a little bit worrying to me. I don't know about you guys. Let me know your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Hey, what's up, guys? Sorry about that. Just had to stop and grab my morning Dunkin' Donuts. But yeah, you know, I think I was just talking about how everyone was kind of falling into the trap of believing crypto can only go up, and that's normal, and people were starting to get cocky. Everybody thought they were a great trader, whether they've been in the space for years or whether they've been in for 2 weeks and made some money, and like, oh yeah, And it kind of reminds me of kind of my own experience following the 2007, 2008, 2009 stock market crash. I've always had an interest in stocks. I mean, my dad kind of got me, buying pity amounts of stocks. Like I used to buy some Nike and Nintendo when I was a kid, but I kind of seriously got interested in and started investing in the stock market kind of like towards the end of the 2008 crash, whenever that whole thing extended a couple years, but towards the end. And literally everything you bought was going up because everything had taken like an 80% haircut. So you literally could have threw darts at the wall, and no matter what stock you hit, no matter what stock you picked, you were making money. And it's actually how I bought my first house. I think I threw like $900 into the market, wound up running it up to about $10,000, and that's what I used as a down payment to buy my first townhouse. And it was kind of funny, a couple years later, I think I took maybe a little bit of time off from investing, and then after that I started investing again, and I'm like, wow, this isn't the same experience of everything you buy goes straight up. You actually need to like do your research and pick intelligent stocks and things like that. And I see kind of the same thing happening here in the crypto space. I would say the altcoin market was growing unsustainably. It was really amazing to kind of see the shift of like all these like long time quality projects and quality coins that had been occupying the top 10, the top 20, the top 50, even the top 100 market cap spots. It was kind of disappointing to me myself to see a lot of these projects kind of get washed out by a lot of the garbage, right? Like the Trons, I don't mean to talk bad about Cardano. I know a lot of people like Cardano, but like they don't even have a working project. It really doesn't deserve to be a top 5 coin in my opinion, at least not at this time. But we started seeing all these new coins. Everybody got obsessed with new projects, and a lot of great projects that weren't new and shiny kind of got forgotten about. One of them is Navcoin. I know not everybody loves Navcoin. I'm a huge Navcoin fan myself, but I think to some extent, I think the coin is just not a new coin. People just aren't that excited about something that's not shiny and new. Everybody wants to jump on a new hot coin, and there was kind of a period where everybody was wanting to invest in anything that was cheap. Just because a coin's cheap doesn't necessarily mean it's a good buy. And another thing I think a lot of people, especially new traders, have a hard time wrapping their head around is if Bitcoin goes up 10% or a penny coin goes up 10%, you're up 10% either way. It doesn't really matter that you can buy that many more coins because they're a penny or a nickel. At the end of the day, 10% is 10%, right? So let's talk a little bit about taking profits. There seems to be this really kind of stupid mentality in the cryptocurrency space that if you take profits, you're a weak hand. If you take profits, you don't deserve the gains. You don't deserve to be in this space. You're not a true believer. And the reality of it is, just because this is crypto doesn't mean like traditional smart investment strategies go out the window, right? Like things like rebalancing, taking profits, like these things are smart things to do. It doesn't make you a weak hand. It doesn't make you a poor crypto trader. It doesn't make you a traitor to the space. I think it's intelligent to take profits. A lot of people, we can argue about what a good percentage of your net worth to have in crypto is. I think most people probably say 10%, maybe 15% on the high end. Those of us who've been in the space for a while, I think by default are sitting very heavily into crypto because, if you got in 6 months ago, which isn't even that long, let alone a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that couple $1,000s you put in is potentially like, at least at the highs was closing in on 6 figures. And, I think it wouldn't be silly to say, okay, I'm gonna take some of this money off the top and maybe put it into the stock market, or I'm gonna take some money out of here and start a business, or I'm gonna take some money out of here and maybe buy a rental property. Like, by no means is that stupid, but in the crypto space, there was sort of forming this attitude that everything can do nothing but go up, and if you sell, you're a weak hand, and all this other kind of nonsense. So never feel bad about taking profits, right? Like if you pull out of the market and you made money, you have more money than when you started. Feel good about that. Be proud of that. Don't kick yourself for missing out on gains. Look at what the market did. The market, ran up from what, $8,000 to $20,000. Now, if somebody sold at 14 grand or 15 grand, sure, they missed out on some of that upside potential from 14K to 19K, but they still made a lot of money. I would much rather miss out on another 40% gain then wind up giving it all back, which is essentially wound up what happening. Me personally, I guess I don't always listen to what I preach, you know, even though I feel like, at least, and I feel like I've always kind of said, you know, take profits, don't be stupid, nothing is certain, etc. And I didn't necessarily listen to my own advice, and I'm kind of wishing I would have taken out some profits. Now, over the years, I have taken money out. I do have my initial investment back. I still am in the green because I've been in this space for a while. I definitely feel for the people who bought Tron at a quarter or who bought Bitcoin at $18,000. And even me personally, I'm always dollar cost averaging. So, you know, I was buying when Bitcoin was 14K, I was buying when Bitcoin was 16K, I was buying when Bitcoin was 19K. So even though I have a lot of cheap buys to kind of offset those, I was buying at the peaks right along with you guys. And one kind of funny thing, just in terms of people's psychology with investing and things like that, for whatever reason, it's a lot easier to buy at 19K when everybody is rah-rah than it is to buy at 7K when everything is doom and gloom, right? Like, I don't know why that is. Like, logically speaking, you'd probably want to buy when things are down 60 or 70% as opposed to when things are at an all-time high. But like, when you see everybody's positive sentiment on the markets, you can't help but to think, okay, it's at 19K, it's going to 25K, it's going to 50K, and that's when you want to buy in. And in reality, the best time to buy in is right now, when there's blood in the streets and everybody is uncertain. If you sold Bitcoin at 19K, you could almost buy back for, I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but you could almost buy back for a third of what you got out at. So yeah, it's never bad to take profits. Don't let anybody, you know, talk shit to you or get in your head. At the end of the day, it's your money and you need to look out for yourself. I wish I had taken more profits along the way. Right now, I'm kind of looking at buying a couple rental properties in a college town, probably either Northern Illinois or Eastern Illinois. And properties in those areas can be pretty cheap, man. I was looking at some townhomes, student housing, great area of the campus and everything, 25 grand, 30 grand. So, I mean, it's easy to see how, even if you're not crypto rich, you know, if you've been in crypto for a few years, your cryptocurrency profits could help you get set up with like a nice rental portfolio or something like that. I was actually going to make another video talking about that whole issue, but if any of you guys are into like real estate, or especially rentals, even more specifically like college rentals, definitely reach out to me. I'd love to maybe have you on the channel, or if nothing else, just kind of pick your brain personally, because that's something I'm looking at getting into. But yeah, never be ashamed to take profits. Never be ashamed to take some profits and rebalance into some other things. I think that's a smart thing to do. As far as like my sentiment on the markets right now, I'll be quite honest with you guys. I've never been so uncertain of the markets. I'm not saying I've never been, actually I've probably never been so pessimistic either, but I've never been so uncertain is kind of my main point. And what I mean by that is I used to be pretty good at predicting the markets, right? I kind of generally knew if the markets were going to go up or go down. I kind of knew what coins were going to jump out. And over the past couple months, I think just the number of coins and the amount of shakeup we've seen in like the top 100 coins, for me personally, it's just too much to possibly keep track of. So I've been kind of working on trying to pay attention to like all the fray going on and all these new coins popping up, and just kind of focus on kind of my core holdings and knowing those coins and knowing those charts. And that's actually something that I've seen a lot of other people in the space doing as well. I was watching a video by Crypto Bobby last night, and he was saying the same thing. He said, you know, I'm trying to kind of consolidate my portfolio. I'm trying to go from maybe like 14 plus coins to like under 10 coins, because when you start getting too many coins, it's just too hard to keep track of everything. And it's kind of funny, this is actually kind of an old story, but I remember me and a buddy of mine were kind of like swing trading Rise a while back, and Rise, like, you know, I think tripled up overnight. And my buddy's like, oh man, did you see what Rise did? And I was sitting on some Rise, and I was like, no, what? He's like, it tripled last night. But it immediately came back down. But I'm like, oh crap, I didn't even get the opportunity to sell it, because I'm sitting on so much stuff that I can't even necessarily pay attention to the movements of each coin. So that's something that I'd like to start doing right now, is kind of consolidating my positions, getting my portfolio down into like maybe outside of Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum, which I feel like are kind of the three core positions. I'm going to try to probably consolidate myself into maybe 3 to 5 other positions. So things that I'm looking at are like NEO for sure. Lisk is another one. ARK just doesn't get that much love, but I feel like ARK is really undervalued, so ARK as well. Really optimistic about EOS and Ethos. But one thing that I run into is, like, right now I'm looking at consolidating my positions, but with everything being down so much, like, it almost hurts me to sell Ethos at this low price, right? Like, I don't want to, essentially when you trade, you lock in your losses, and I don't really want to lock in my losses. So the only kind of caveat to that, or the only kind of bright side I see to that, is if you sell something and buy something that's equally down, I think theoretically you have the same amount of upside. So let's say I was maybe scattered across 15 positions. If all of them are down 20%, if I sell one of my positions, even though I'm locking in a loss, I'm also getting into NEO or Lisk or probably a better quality coin, and not really taking, if that makes any sense, and not really taking as big of a loss because everything is down. I actually have been putting a little bit more money into the markets lately against my better judgment. And here's kind of why I feel like I wish I would have taken more profits and things like that. Because, you know, like I said, people say you shouldn't have more than, what, 10% or 15% of your net worth or whatever it is in the crypto. I'm way over, I have way too high of a percent of my money in crypto. And so when dips happen, I'd love to take advantage and buy in more, but I'm already so heavily invested into the space that I'm like, I really shouldn't put any more money in. So I mean, I bought some Ethereum at 1,000. I bought some Ethereum at 890. I bought some Ethereum at 800, and everything just, you know, it's like they say, catching falling knives. Everything just continues to go down lower. We keep getting these, I don't know what do people refer to them as, dead cat bounces or bull traps, where it starts to look like the market starts to find some stability, and then it, you know, just takes an even deeper dive. So we're seeing a lot of that happening. I'm not sure what the bottom is going to be. You know, it's kind of funny, like maybe over the past week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I had heard a lot of people calling bottoms of like 7,300, 7,400, and in my head I was like, oh, no way will we go that low. We are that low. So right now we're at the point that a lot of long time and people who I think are kind of smart investors had called as being the bottom. Whether we continue going lower will be interesting to see. I think probably actually I don't want to say that. I was going to say probably the worst thing you can do is sell. Like if you're planning on selling and having the market dip further and buying back in, almost nobody successfully times the markets. I think you might be asking for trouble doing that. I mean, if you want to get out of the crypto space for a while and you want to sell off and kind of let things stabilize, not personally what I'm doing, but you know, if that's something that you want to do, I would say it's not like a crazy theory or a crazy plan, but don't think that you're going to get out, watch Bitcoin drop another $2,000 and then get back in, because the chances of you timing the market perfectly aren't that great. Let me I was just stopping before I gotta stop and do another errand here real quick. Let me see here. I think I talked about on-chain FX, consolidating my portfolio. Ethereum, Neo, Lisk, Icon was one of the other ones that I'm going heavy into. I'm probably going to dump some of my NAV position. It really hurts. I got into NAV at like 50 cents, wrote it up over $4. Was like, I really do love NAV coin, but the markets don't love it, so I have to move on. I'm still going to keep some of it, but I went like really heavy into NAV. I fell in love with the community. I fell in love with their NavPay wallet, which still, in my opinion, is probably the best mobile wallet out there on the market. It's a staking coin, which I see the trends going towards favoring staking as well as privacy coins, but for whatever reason, NAV just doesn't get a lot of love. It's an older coin, and I think a lot of people are looking for the new shiny kid on the block. Something I talked about a while back was not buying into crypto anymore, but like earning more crypto. I've kind of swayed from that a little bit and started buying a little bit more, but ultimately I want to earn crypto through freelancing, through affiliate programs, and stop putting my own money in. Let's see. And then lastly, let's just kind of talk about what is some of the negative news and things like that we've been seeing. So, bans or rumors of bans. Man, I'm smelling like exhaust from my car here. Rumors of bans, which really comes down to like inaccurate reporting and fake news and things like that. So first we heard China was banning cryptocurrency. They didn't ban crypto, they banned exchanges. Chinese people continued trading through VPNs and things like that anyway, so not as big of an issue. Then we heard Russia was banning crypto. That turned out not to be true. Then we at one point heard a rumor that the USA was banning crypto. Turned out not to be true. Then we heard that Korea was banning crypto. Turned out that Korea was not banning crypto. All they were saying is you can no longer use anonymous bank accounts, and they're going to implement like some KYC policies, which is kind of common sense and is kind of surprising that they weren't requiring that all along. We have the Tether situation looming over our head. Tether and Bitfinex, we've kind of found out definitively that they are the same company. There does look, nothing as of right now. It's all rumors and speculation, but they have been subpoenaed. The timing and how things look are kind of funny in the sense that as soon as Tether starts being investigated, all of a sudden they're not printing 100 million Tethers every day, right? Like the printing press kind of slows down. So I found that to be kind of interesting. It's also kind of interesting the timing of, a lot of people speculate that Bitfinex and Tether were printing Tether to kind of prop up the Bitcoin markets. It brought a whole lot of like fake liquidity or fake volume to the markets. And now that Tether is being printed to prop things up, we're seeing kind of the bottom fall out. So the timing of that is kind of interesting. Credit cards started blocking crypto purchases. Not all credit cards are blocking it. Some you just have to call up and say, hey, I'm trying to make a purchase, and they'll let you buy. But Capital One was one of the first to do it. Then it was Chase and Bank of America followed shortly thereafter. Like I said, not all of them are outright banning. A lot of them are now cash advances, or you have to call them up to do it. A lot of people are like, oh, everyone hates crypto, this is why. I think it has more to do with people doing credit card chargebacks when they lost money. Somebody who bought Bitcoin at 19K and now see it sitting at 7K might pick up the phone and, hey Chase, I saw this charge on my card and it wasn't me. Basically trying to get the credit card company to eat their loss on crypto. Also probably a lot of credit card theft and fraud and stuff like that going on. So I think credit card companies have handled it poorly in how they've come out. A lot of them have come out and been like, it's too risky, we don't want to lend to you. And I see a lot of people getting upset with credit card companies. I mean, at the end of the day, it's their money. They get to choose who and what they lend it for. I compare it to this. If you ask your mom for $50 to buy a college textbook, she'd probably say yeah. If you ask your mom for $50 to buy a bag of weed, she'd probably say no. Maybe some of you guys' moms would give you $50 to buy a bag of weed, but most of them would probably say no. And it's the same thing. Ultimately at the end of the day, the credit card company, it's their company, it's their card, it's their money. And while we may not like it, they can choose to lend it to or not lend it to people for whatever reason they want to. I mean, at the end of the day, you really shouldn't be buying on credit cards anyways. The only legitimate reason for buying on a credit card is wanting to get your money into the space immediately. But right now, if I'm not mistaken, I think Coinbase and a lot of other sites, even with ACH transfers, are giving you access to your Bitcoin, your Litecoin, or your Ethereum immediately anyway, so I don't necessarily think there's a reason to put it on a card. If you don't have the money, you shouldn't be buying crypto, and you're paying like 4.5% extra fees over what you would pay just doing ACH and making your buy through GDAX anyway. So that probably wasn't a smart thing. I've heard a lot of people like throwing, and nobody could really possibly know this number, but I hear a lot of people throwing out the number that like 40% of the market was people buying in with credit cards, and there's no way to definitively know that, but I do think there were a lot of people buying on credit. So now that people are either locked out of using credit and or going to pay cash advance fees, I think that is also going to take a lot of liquidity and a lot of volume out of the market. And we also have like new buyers and weak hands in the space. I kind of hate that term, weak hands, but let's be honest, it's a reality. There is a lot of weak hands. People who've seen Bitcoin and crypto drop in the past have a little bit of a stronger stomach for sticking in. Somebody who just got in, bought in at 19K and saw the market fall out from under them, they may freak out and sell. They may never come back to the crypto markets again, and that's just kind of the reality. This correction, crash, whatever you want to call it, is scaring me. It's worse than anything we've ever seen before. And what's really frustrating is even if things come back, it's got me kind of kicking myself that like, had I taken more profits, I could have seen that much more gain. Because right, like at this point, I don't want to say to be in the green because I'm still in the green, but to be back in the green, I'm going to have to see anywhere from like 30% to 70% gains. And can you imagine if you were just getting in today, and it gets back to where it was, you're seeing those huge gains. So those of us who have already lost money to this crash, we've seen it come down, so we have a huge way to go just to get back to even, and then even more to go to actually see profit. So that's kind of frustrating. Another thing that's kind of frustrating is I think we like to think, at least I like to think, that people who've been in the space for a long time and believed in the space for a long time deserve to be rewarded, right? Like we hear all the stories about the guy who put $100 into Bitcoin back when everybody thought Bitcoin was fake play internet money, and then it turned into $1 million. And that, well, it's not really realistic, and well, we can't really hope for like that situation exactly to happen to us. I would like to think that somebody who's been patient and been a strong hand and stayed in this market for 2 or 3 years, that they deserve, you know, something for their faith, for their efforts, etc. And so to see the markets pull back and like to give somebody the opportunity who's just getting in today to get in at the same price as somebody who's been in 6 months or a year, that's kind of frustrating. So I guess that just kind of instills my belief to take gains, because there are no founders awards, there are no bonuses for having held for a long time. So get in cheap, take your profits. I think this could be a pretty long-term bear market. I mean, this market turns on a dime. So I mean, we could be back up to all-time highs we could be back to all-time highs 3 weeks from now. This market could trade sideways or be in a downturn for the next 6 months for all we know, right? At the end of the day, just nobody knows. One big thing to look out on the radar for, and I think this is probably the last thing I say, and then I'll kind of cut out. This video's probably been a little bit all over the place. Like I said, I'm kind of flustered by all this. So tomorrow, the SEC and the CB, somebody fill me in, I'm forgetting the thing, but there's a big meeting tomorrow between the SEC and the CBFT or CBFC, whatever it is, and basically there might be some, I mean, it could be cryptocurrency is banned, it could be here's some new regulation, but personally, I feel like things can't really get much worse from here. I shouldn't say things can't get much worse from here. I mean, we could go to $2,000 Bitcoin, but in terms of like negative news and things like that, we can't really get much worse than what we're. It would be difficult for things to get much worse than they are right now. I think a lot of times uncertainty itself is worse than bad news, right? Like at least bad news, we kind of know something for certain and we can move on from it. With uncertainty, nobody knows what's going to happen, so new money's scared to go into the market. It's just kind of bad for everything. So I think tomorrow is going to be a good day. I'm not saying we're going to see a big bounce or markets are going to recover, but I think a lot of this uncertainty in the markets about like what the government is going to do, any regulation that might come down, what's going on with ICOs. I think we should get some clarification after that. And while that may not mean a lot to the individual or the retail investor, because, you know, a lot of us are like, I don't really care what the SEC says. You know, I can still buy, you know, crypto can't really be stopped. It can't really be regulated in a sense. So if I still want to buy into ICOs, I can still buy into ICOs and nobody can really stop me. But for like institutional investors who actually have to follow laws and follow rules, I think there's a lot of institutional money sitting on the sidelines, or maybe that's not going in as heavy because of this looming fear of regulation or uncertainty about what regulation will look like. So I think no matter what happens tomorrow, I think we'll get a little bit of clarity on what the government's looking to maybe do in crypto, or what the SEC, what type of stance the SEC is looking to take on ICOs and things like that. One last thing I'll throw out there. I know a lot of people have kind of speculated that the SEC didn't want to come in during a bull run and like stop the gains and have everybody pissed at them, but the SEC would rather come in when, and even just the government in general when it comes to regulation, they'd rather come in when things are in the toilet and say, see guys, this is why we should have been in this space. We could have saved you all from yourselves. I think they would rather come in when things are down and when things are looking bad than they would come in when Bitcoin's at 19,000 and altcoins are going through the roof, and then just like kill the market and make everybody lose money. They'd rather come in after everybody's lost money and say, see, we could have helped you guys stop this, or you see, you should have been investing in these ICOs or whatever else. So anyhow, this is, I got to run into this store here and then head into the office. I know a really, really rambling video, but just kind of wanted to kind of talk through some of the things that I'm thinking about. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Like, what's the market going to do? Are we going to get any exciting news tomorrow? Like, what is your strategy? How has your strategy changed? Are you consolidating your portfolio? Are you diversifying even more? Curious to hear your guys' thoughts about any of that type of stuff. Drop a comment in the comment section below. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.